Welcome in week 4 edition of the Cash Process. I'm your host, Ben Hostler. We are here to reflect on week 3 NFL DFS and preview week 4. I cannot believe it's already week 4. We are moving right along into the meat of the season here. Hopefully, you guys had a good week 3. For me, I fell just short in cash games. If you watched the Sunday morning stream, I told you guys it was going to be very, very chalky. It was going to be the opposite of week 2. I loved the week 2 slate. There wasn't a clear build. People were going all over the place in cash games. It was super fun. It felt like an old DFS slate from 4 or 5 years ago. Had a lot of fun with that slate. Last week, it was very clear that it was going to be very, very chalky with so much concentration on the Minnesota Los Angeles Chargers game. And I told you guys straight up on Sunday morning on the stream at 11 a.m., if you're playing DraftKings cash games, there's a very real chance that it comes down to a 1v1 Zach Moss versus Christian Kirk for the chalky lineup. And I told you guys I was pretty definitive. I wanted to play Christian Kirk over Zach Moss. That did not work out in my favor. Zach Moss narrowly, it wasn't that Christian Kirk had a bad game, but Zach Moss did outscore him. And that ultimately kept me just short of the cash line. So that was unfortunate. I ended up breaking even for the most part. On the main slate, I had 2 really good tournament lineups. Both were Lamar Jackson teams, and one of them had Mostert. The other one had just some other pieces that really went crazy. So overall, is an okay week, but 1-2 in cash games. We're going to look to get back on track this week. Like I said, hopefully you guys had a good week 3, and we're looking forward to week 4 now. I will quickly shout out, if you want to sign up for the core plays, absolutely demolished that 2-game slate on Monday night. Had a very, very good, if that Tutu touchdown, first of all, this is off topic, but Tutu Atwell, that touchdown getting overturned was the most egregious thing I've ever seen in an NFL game. I mean, if you don't think that I'm not saying that sports are fixed or whatever, but if you don't think that there is influence on these primetime games, then I don't know what to tell you. It was very, very clear that they did not want the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not saying that it was scripted out, but there was very clear to me that they wanted to do everything in their power to make sure the Cincinnati Bengals did not start out 0-3, because there's just no way in any other situation, if that game is on a Sunday, they're not overturning that. There was a clear camera angle where his heel did not touch the ground, and it was called a touchdown on the field. I don't understand how they overturned that. But demolish that slate. If that, I mean, I probably would have won $7,000 or $8,000 had that touchdown not get overturned. But it was a great night for the subscribers, and I have to shout out betkarma.com. If you guys are not taking advantage of this, I'm not on here to just gas things up. I'm just telling you a fact. I am up 80 units betting since January 1st. I am up over 20 units already in college football. I am up over 15 units already betting the NFL. We have demolished these primetime same game parlays. You are missing out on money. Your sub would be paid for already had you signed up within the last 2 weeks. Go check it out, betkarma.com/pricing. You get my betting card, and you also get access to all the great tools. We're building new tools every single week. Super, super excited about the future there at Bet Karma, so go check that out. With that being said, let's move on to week 4. I have DraftKings pulled up on my screen here, and we're going to preview the cash game slate for week 4. We're going to start off at quarterback per usual. Last week, we had an extremely, extremely chalky Kirk Cousins. He was upwards of 70% owned in cash games on DraftKings.com. Very, very chalky. This week, we have another clear game. It's the first game right here at the top. Miami and Buffalo. It's a 53.5 over-under. It is going to be massively owned. Very similar to what we saw in the Chargers-Vikings game last week. Miami coming off a 70-point outburst against the Denver Broncos, matching up with the Buffalo Bills. This will be a very, very chalky game. Josh Allen is most likely your cash game quarterback. I prefer him to Tua in cash game formats because you don't get any of this rushing bonus with Tua. Josh Allen finally got in the box last week rushing. Only 3 attempts, but 46 yards for a touchdown. The closer the game, the more he's going to run historically, and that has held true this season as well. You can see against the New York Jets, it was a losing effort. He had 6 rush attempts. In a massive blowout against Vegas, only 3. And in a massive blowout against Washington, only 3. So in the one close game that they've played this season, he doubled his rushing attempt number. That is going to be the case in closer games. It's a 2.5 point spread. The Bills are favored at home. Josh Allen is probably, you're going to be finding a way to get up to him in your cash games. After him, I mean, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Lamar, Tua, Kirk Cousins, all these guys, fine plays. I want to play Josh Allen in cash games. I will say, though, there is the potential that we have some cheaper quarterbacks this week. Anthony Richardson for sure would actually be in the conversation for me for cash games if he is ruled in. I'm very, very high on that game for tournaments, but I don't know if he's going to play. I want to play Josh Allen in cash, but Anthony Richardson would make my cash game pool if we get confirmation that he's going to play just because of the massive rushing upside that he possesses. Moving on down here, like I said, really like that indie game for tournaments. There is some cheaper quarterbacks though. We have down even below CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud's been playing great. So if you wanted to get weird in cash and like spend down at quarterback and just jam in a bunch of studs, historically in the last few years, that's not really the way I've been going because you have guys like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson that run the ball the way they do. But weirdly enough, there is some cheap options. Jameis Winston is most likely going to be starting here for New Orleans. It's a revenge game. There's tons of revenge narratives on this week 4 slate. I think it's pretty interesting. Jameis Winston, revenge against his former team. He's only 5,300. He has been known to throw the ball around the yard. Came in, didn't even play like a full half, threw the ball 16 times. Obviously, it was a close game last week, but Jameis Winston at 5,300 definitely is viable. Kenny Pickett is going to project well against Houston. Don't love the Matt Canada offense over there, but it is a good matchup. You also have Gardner Minshew, who, if Anthony Richardson can't go, will be starting for Indy again. And then we got to see what the heck's going on here with Jimmy Garoppolo. He was placed in concussion protocol. The way that the NFL has been handling concussions as of late, I would put him more likely to miss this game than to play in this game. And then there becomes a very, very interesting decision. I'm assuming that the Las Vegas Raiders and Josh McDaniels would go with old reliable, who is Brian Hoyer, to be the backup quarterback. As you can see here, I think it's more likely that they go with the veteran. But if there was for some situation, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. I'm just going to bring it up. If there is for some reason they go with Aiden O'Connell, who dominated in the preseason, he is stone minimum $4,000. You would be playing him in cash games if that was the case. But I do think that's an unlikely outcome. I think it's most likely Brian Hoyer gets to start if Jimmy Garoppolo misses the game. All right. That about does it. There was some chirping in the comments last week about me talking too much about tournaments. Look, I'm only doing one DFS video a week rather than 2. Obviously, I do the streams, but I'm only doing 1. So I'm going to give my takes on here. I'm highlighting clearly the cash game pool. I'm giving some other guys I like. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it's going to be. Josh Allen for cash. Anthony Richardson, maybe if he's in. Love him for tournaments. If not, Joe Burrow is interesting for tournaments against Tennessee just because of the pass funnel. Moving on to running back. We do have Christian McCaffrey back on this slate. Austin Eckler probably would play this week, I guess. I mean, it kind of sounded like he had a chance to play last week and he didn't. So I would assume he's back in the fold here. That is a net negative, in my opinion, for the Chargers offense. The Chargers have been much more willing to throw the ball down the field with Austin Eckler out of the lineup. They've been much more willing to just pass all over the place without Austin Eckler in the lineup. So net negative for the Chargers offense if Austin Eckler's back, in my opinion. You also have Tony Pollard at home against New England at 7,800. I think this week, much like we've seen last year and the first few weeks of this season, it's going to be mid-tier running backs and cash games. McCaffrey is a fine play against Arizona. If you want to get up to Christian McCaffrey in your cash builds, if I ever play someone head-to-head and they have CMC and cash, I'm not going to think that they're bad, but I think it's going to be more of the same this week, and you're going to want to just play these mid-tier guys. We have in this dropping all the way below. All these guys are tournament plays, in my opinion. I think we're dropping all the way down to 6K. Kyron Williams, Los Angeles Rams. 2 big games to start the season. Didn't do much against Cincy, over only 8.5 points, but once again, played every single snap. As long as he's playing every snap for the Rams, he is going to be a great DFS play. I mean, I don't understand. He's only 6K, and all these guys above him do not play every single snap. He is playing every snap in a good game. Kyron Williams, 100% cash game viable again this week. Zach Moss did not play every snap, but played the vast majority of them in the same game that I like this week. 6K. He was chalky last week. He went off for 25 DraftKings points. He will be chalky once again. I also will bring up Alvin Kamara, who's back at 6,100. He is going to project very well in that game. I think he's a great cash game play. So I think you're dropping all the way down to the 61 and below for cash games. I like 2 of those 3 guys. You can put in Rashad White here at 5,600. Another guy with just a very secure role in this offense. They haven't played Sean Tucker as much as I thought coming into the season. He hasn't been very good. He got stuffed at the goal line last night, but Rashad White is going to be in play for cash. DeAndre Swift, I think, is going to be in play for cash. I wouldn't have said that 2 days ago, but once again, I mean, 16 attempts for 130 yards last night. That Philly offensive line looks just as good as last season. Big home favorites for Philly, so DeAndre Swift is probably in that range. What do we do? What do we do with Najee Harris? Probably not a cash play, but 5,500 against Houston. He continues to get a heavy amount of rush attempts, so I think it's clear. We're going with 2 mid-tier running backs again in your cash game rosters. I don't really see anyone else below them, so I think you're going with 2 of these, like 5,400 up to 61. I think you're picking 2 of those guys. Moving on, probably playing 4 receivers again, to be quite honest with you, because I think there's a good amount of receivers that I like this week. So we will segue that over to receiver. I told you guys on last week's video, Justin Jefferson was going to score a touchdown. He did. He had 30, almost 31 DraftKings points. He's fine. If you want to play him in cash, it's great. If we, for example, let's see. Okay, if we plug Josh Allen in here and we plug in just say 2 of these guys, and let's put a cheap defense in here. Yeah, I mean, you're probably gonna be spending up for a few receivers. So Justin Jefferson, completely fine. Tyreek Hill in that Buffalo game, both Tyreek Hill and Steph Diggs, completely fine in cash. I don't need to come on here and break this down to you guys. Tyreek Hill has been an absolute anomaly. I do think that Jaylen Waddle will be back this week. Tyreek Hill's numbers without Jaylen Waddle are video game-like, over 45% target share, league high yards per route run with Jaylen Waddle off the field. So if we ever get another situation this season where Jaylen Waddle's out, you probably just plug in Tyreek Hill and move on. But all those guys are fine. Devontae Adams certainly can be put into that tier. I mean, just an insane amount of targets, 20 on Sunday night. He's dominating the team target share. He's dominating the team air yards percentage. Just absolutely balling out, doing Devontae Adams things. And this is a good game as well. Vegas and the Chargers. Chargers, we know, have given up a ton of explosive plays on defense, specifically to receivers. So Devontae Adams, you can certainly put in the cash game range as well. I think his ownership and just the want to play him will go down if Jimmy Garoppolo is not playing. But I want you guys to remember that late last season, Derek Carr was not playing for the Raiders, and they brought in Jarrett Stidham, and Devontae Adams went for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. So do not let Jimmy Garoppolo being out deter you from playing Devontae Adams. Now that probably would put him definitively below these two guys for me. Definitely below Diggs in cash if Growl was out, but for tournaments and other stuff, I still really want to play Devontae Adams. Keenan Allen, we also have to talk about. I mean, a 20 target game, caught 18 balls for 215 yards, just absolutely monster game for Keenan Allen. Like I said, I think Austin Eckler being back does affect him. I actually think Eckler being back affects him like to the point where it like offsets Mike Williams being out. Like Austin Eckler being back does negatively affect Keenan Allen, in my opinion. So that might take him out of the cash range for me, but we'll see what I think later in the week. He's certainly fine, but I think he would be like for 100 difference. I'd rather have Devontae Adams if Eckler plays, but I mean, both are fantastic plays. And then we have Jamar Chase at 7,800. Like, what are we doing here? Obviously, you knew he was going to have a big game. So even if this was just his game log these first 2 weeks, he should not be 7,800. And then he comes out on Monday night and does Jamar Chase things, 12 catches for 141 yards on 15 targets. Still doesn't have a touchdown this year, much like Justin Jefferson last week. That touchdown is coming soon, and it's very, very likely he gets it this week against Tennessee in a huge pass funnel spot. Love Jamar Chase. Love A.J. Brown. Another guy does not have a touchdown this year. Came out last night with the squeaky wheel narrative, 14 targets, caught 9 for 131. He was very close to scoring a touchdown last week. It's coming soon. Wouldn't be shocked if it comes this week. So just a huge bundle of receivers at the top here. And it's why you want to spend in this 6K tier for running backs. You can get two or, one and one of these guys down here. You want to spend up at receiver. And that's just the way DFS is going the past few years. These guys are all tournaments for me. Olave particularly is interesting. Another guy doesn't have a touchdown this year, but 8, 6, and 8 catches. I think Jameis could certainly get him in the box on Sunday. Moving down to the mid tier, we got to wait and see what happens with the Niners guys. That could certainly affect some things. Brandon Ayuk seemed very, very close to playing last Thursday night, and I think he'll be in. Samuel, I guess we don't know. Wasn't spotted at Monday's practice. That doesn't mean much for me. We'll know later on in the week. Assuming they're both in, that would be more GPP for me than cash. The Rams guys, we certainly have to consider. Puka Nacua struggled on Monday night, but still saw 7 targets for 72 yards. Him and Tutu Atwell, I think, are very, very good plays. Tutu's down at 5,500 and has just been an absolute beast this season. And someone that if I don't play him in cash, I want to be overweight to Tutu Atwell again this week. He was very close to a nuclear game on Monday night, and I think that's probably coming soon, and it could certainly come in a game against Indy, whose secondary has just been egregious this season. Zay Flowers is interesting. I really don't want to go out of my way to attack this Cleveland Browns defense. They've basically been the number 1 defense in the NFL so far this season. They have allowed 21 first downs. The next closest is Buffalo at 41. They've just been absolutely dominant. But they are using him as an extension of the run game. 10 targets again last week. Only 48 yards because he's getting a lot of low A-dot looks, but completely fine with Zay Flowers. I would actually probably prefer Tutu, though, personally. We got to talk about this. There's some other guys here in this 5K tier I think are fine just upon first look, like Pickens, Mike Thomas, Nico Collins. Like those guys interest me, but let's keep going down here. My guy, Tank Dell. I talked about him 2 weeks ago. Played him 2 weeks ago. I played him last week as chalk. The kid can play. We saw it when he was in college at Houston. I mean, size aside, yes, he's small. He can get open. That's all that matters. He has elite chemistry already with CJ Stroud. So even at 4,600, I think you can consider Tank Dell once again in cash games. I think you can look at Elijah Moore too. Definitely want to attack Baltimore more in the secondary than just pounding the ball. And he's seen 9 targets in each of the last 2 games, caught all 9 last Sunday. So Elijah Moore is in the cash tier for me. Adam Thielen, I mean, my God, what could go wrong with Adam Thielen chalk in 2023? But this is where we are. He's coming off a 34 DK point game on 14 targets from Andy Dalton. and he's 4,500 against the Minnesota secondary. Like, we are going to see massively owned Adam Thielen in week 4 of 2023. I don't know what's going to happen, but he's going to be chalk. So file Adam Thielen in the cash game tier. Moving down, I really don't see anyone in this low 4K tier other than Josh Palmer, who I think will be very chalky and is a very good play. He will be the wide receiver 2 for the Chargers with Mike Williams out. He has clearly ran ahead of Quentin Johnston all season. 7 targets last week, got in the end zone. Josh Palmer, fantastic play at 4,000. And then you also have Quentin Johnston there at 3,700. So if you guys have followed my content throughout the summer and just first look stuff where I talked, I'm not very high on Quentin Johnston as a receiver personally. I just don't think he's very good. Didn't like him at TCU. I mean, he had a big last season at TCU, but it was all just he would run in a straight line down the field, and Max Duggan would just throw the ball up, and either guys would like fall down and he would catch it, or he would just make like crazy play. I don't know. I'm not a big Quentin Johnston fan. I don't think he's very good. And they haven't seemed like very inclined to play him despite drafting him in the first round, which tells me that, something's going on where he's just not ready for full action. Now, this is a different situation this week because they have a week to prepare. And with Mike Williams out, he's going to probably have to be thrust into action. So if you want to play Quentin Johnston at 3,700 in tournaments, I think you can. But for a cash pool, I very clearly would prefer Palmer at 4K. I want to put Marvin Mims in the cash pool, but much like Quentin Johnston, they just haven't seemed inclined to give him full work. Now, he's been much more successful than Quentin Johnston. He caught a long touchdown in week 2, and then he took a kickback last week. The time is probably coming soon for Marvin Mims, more so than Johnston, but it's just not this week. There are some guys down here that I can mention for cash. First being Josh Downs at 3,500. I mean, Gardner Minshew seemed to like him. I mean, Gardner Minshew was peppering him and Michael Pittman. Like, that was the 2 guys that he was throwing the ball to. So even if Richardson's in, I think you can look at Josh Downs. But if Richardson's out, I think you really can look at Josh Downs at 3,500, coming off a 12-target game, playing pretty much exclusively in the slot for the Colts. Very, very good play at 3,500. And then there's one other guy all the way down here. It is Calvin Austin. I would prefer Josh Downs to Calvin Austin for cash games, but I still think you can look at Calvin Austin. 6+ targets in 2 of the 3 weeks, being the direct replacement to Deontay Johnson. He caught a long touchdown last week. Houston will give up long touchdowns. They're very banged up in the secondary right now. I don't know what was going on with Jacksonville last week, but you can definitely pick on this Houston secondary. So Calvin Austin would crack my cash tier, but I think I would prefer Josh Downs for 200 more. Overall, some good cheap options at receiver, some great spend up options. Very, very fun week. And it's just goes to show you, like, you can plug in one of these cheap guys. Like, let's just put, let's just put Palmer in, for example. Where's he at? With this build, and then we're going to segue this to tight end, but let's just say we put like a cheap tight end in, like, you're going to be able to get, two expensive receivers, I think. But all right, let's move on to tight end. Same suspects here at tight end. I mean, you have Hawkinson, you have Andrews, you have Kittle, all at the top. I think those guys are fine for tournaments, but you're not spending up in cash games. Kittle would be my favorite, 5,100 against Arizona, who we know is very, very leaky against tight ends. Taysom Hill's 4,500 for some reason. I don't know what DraftKings is doing, but that's just downright hilarious. Like, no one is playing Taysom Hill for 4,500. I'm sorry. Probably skipping over the 4K tier. I want the 3,500 and below. Both Ferguson and Freiermuth are interesting. Ferguson has a very, very tough matchup. New England historically very tough on tight ends, so probably wouldn't be going there in cash. Freiermuth, much better matchup. He's 3,400. You can certainly fire him up. Dalton Kincaid, I'm sure, will be chalky once again. He didn't do much last week, but he wasn't needed. I mean, they just outright dominated the Washington Commanders. But he's only 3,200 in the 53.5 over-under. I'm sure, people played Durham Smythe. Not people, I did. Everybody played Durham Smythe last week. People will be playing Dalton Kincaid this week. You have Knox also there, if you wanted to do that. Chig, I mean, I don't know. People play Chig every week. Didn't do much against Cleveland, but I can't blame him. Like, that defense is just nasty. Probably a better spot against Cincy. And he's down to 3,100, so he's certainly interesting. If Logan Thomas misses again, they played Cole Turner. So I was talking Cole Turner up in the group chat. Matt was kind of like telling me I was biased because I like Cole Turner. But look, Cole Turner's a baller, and he played without Logan Thomas. 7 targets, 4 for 35. Good matchup against Philly, who historically we like to target with tight ends. So if Logan Thomas was out, I would 100% be fine playing a $2,700 Cole Turner in my cash game lineups. And finishing off at defense here, we're going to want to save money in cash games. Browns at 2,800. I know it's Lamar Jackson, but I mean, he will take some sacks. Like I said, Browns have basically been the best defense in football. They have multiple sacks in every single game. They're 2,800 at home as a home favorite. File them in your cash pool. If you want to play the Bears or the Broncos are really expensive. So if you want to play the Bears, I mean, I guess I don't know. This game is just egregious. Denver versus Chicago. Like, who is watching that? If you're watching that game this weekend, you are just so sick. Like, you're sick in the head. Carolina at home, like whatever. Like, you want to save money at defense. Browns at 2,800 stick out to me. All that being said, if you made it this far in the video, appreciate it. Please leave a like on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. We're almost to 6,000 subs on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button. It's free. Ring the notification bell so you know when we upload videos. I will have a Survivor Pool video up on Wednesday. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments how you did last week, or a bold call for this week, something. Let's get the comments going. Let's get the likes going. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in week 4.